Episode 21, Cyborgs. Well, it's probably not a real familiar thing, but there is a. Oh, my camera's closed. There we go. Or looking good. There is a story of a ship called Theseus. I think it's Theseus, however you say it. I assume it's Theseus. Anyways, the idea is there's a ship and it's traveling, and every so often they replace a board. It goes on this giant adventure. When the ship gets back to port, not a single original board remains on the ship. And then they ask the question, when did it become another ship? When did it stop being the original ship? See, that's something that we get stuck in. We're always wanting to categorize stuff. With humans as a whole, we want to put stuff in a here's what it is. We have a static idea of it, we have a static definition. So when you think of a friend of yours, that friend of yours is moving through time. As am I. I'm moving through time. As you're watching, by the end of the video, I'm going to be somewhat different, if only by a very, very fraction of a percent. I'll have lost a couple skin cells, maybe a hair's fallen out. I'll be a different person as a static definition of what my entirety is when I started the video. And so that's the thing that we stop thinking of. We think of people as static. We think this is what they are. And we think, here's what they look like, here's what they were doing, here's what stuff they like. But people are always changing, change through time. That's one of the beauties of time. It's always a changing thing. And so with this ship of Theseus, the ship is changing throughout time as well. And it's always adapting and becoming a new version of itself, hopefully a better version of itself. Same with people. We should always be looking to be a better version of what we were the last time you saw us. Self improvement. We should be running into society in different ways, sort of like bumper bowling. You do something that someone thinks is rude, they say something to you. Oh, okay, I'll try not to do that maybe. Or you say, you know what, they're wrong, and I think they're stupid, and then solidify something. But anyways, so that idea is that you're always changing, and you can replace pieces of somebody, and you have to sort of accept that that person moving through time isn't a static thing. So that being said, when you look at the idea of having cyborgs, think someone's got a leg that maybe their leg was blown off in war or something like that. It gets replaced by a mechanical leg, or it gets replaced by like a titanium replacement leg. That's kind of where we're at right now. We have stuff like that. It's not like mind blowing tech. It's just like, oh, okay, that's what they do now. It doesn't make it a different person, just like it's a different body part. So you start thinking, well, what about if we make like augments? Let's say like someone's got like a shitty arm, their arm doesn't work well, they got joint issues, whatever the deal. Maybe they come up with some sort of like cyborg arm that has things built into it that can help them with what they do for a living. Let's say it's a blacksmith and you make an arm that can stand up to extremely hot temperatures. So if he ever needs to, he could just simply reach in and grab molten metal and be like, yeah, it's cool. I got it. And the idea of having stuff like that would be pretty cool. You had like a firefighter. Maybe you have an arm with like built-in tech on it where it's like something a firefighter would need, like a grappling hook. I don't know. You get the idea of like this Inspector Gadget type of thing. Um, but anyways, with a cyborg, you could replace parts of a human and sort of get like a digital augmented piece that would do something better, hopefully an improvement. So you start thinking, well, how much could you replace until you have like a Tony Stark Iron Man setup and basically an entire human, and the only thing that would remain is your brain, I guess. So you could have a full robotic cyborg body and just a human mind in there. Well, then you start getting into a weird space that we can discuss about the human brain. If it's all ideas and storage and neuron pathways, we could start to digitize that. We could start to say, well, couldn't we build like a cybernetic network, do the same thing to be a replacement for neurons and different pathways? And from what I understand, that would be an immensely massive computer system to even be able to handle a fraction of what the human mind can do. But we're starting to get data centers that are pretty massive. And we might have that computation power in the near future. So then you start to wonder, well, what if you have somebody that has like, let's say they have some type of cancer in their brain, and you know that it's going to grow and it's going to destroy part of their brain? Could you copy parts over, put that on like essentially like a hard drive, obviously like a super powered hard drive that's going to be able to keep up? Wonder if you could do that with memories. Maybe there's a crime scene and somebody can like download their detailed account of what happened. And then later on, somebody else can access that account and remember through a digital device in order to view memories of a crime scene or something that took place. Get like an actual account of what happened based on someone's memories. And it asks a lot of weird questions that we haven't delved into as a society. But back to the ship of Theseus, the idea that you look at is how much of the human mind could you replace with digital until it becomes no longer that individual? And if you're able to go piece by piece and talk to this individual and they say, yeah, everything's good, keep going. What if you get to 30, 40%? What if you get to 60%? What if you get to 80% of their brain is on some type of digital storage and 20% of their brain is organic? And they say, yeah, everything's cool so far. Seems fine. I don't notice any difference. Do some tests, I guess. Start checking, can they remember things the same? Can they operate the same? Do they feel the same? Is there any sense of different state? What happens to their cognition? What happens to their consciousness? Do they find a state somewhere in the middle where they're like, oh, it kind of feels like I'm high, or it feels like there's a brain fog or something weird? None of that's been done before that we know of. It's a weird space, but it's a weird space that I think is really important to delve into because at the very base of this, we run into a space that another company is actually digging into. You guys have probably heard the name. It's Neuralink. They had some discussions on this stuff exactly. And a lot of people, they didn't understand it because it wasn't presented very well. But they were saying, yeah, you could essentially download a version of yourself. And then 10 years later, you could have a conversation with yourself from 10 years ago. And the idea of that is, could we copy over piece by piece the entire human mind and then build some type of interface system so we could then use that in a robot? You could have a robot Einstein, basically. That's the idea that we're getting to. You could start putting people into robots, personalities into robots. It's such a weird concept for us right now because there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of people that say, well, the mind contains what they describe as the soul. And if you believe that the human soul is a collective of ones and zeros and it's a collective of all the different neuron pathways in your mind, then it seems logical that you could have multiple versions of yourself existing at once. But for people that believe that the soul is a specifically organic thing, that starts seeming like it's impossible. It starts seeming like, no, that would be some type of natural disaster. I don't know what they would consider it. They would consider it not human, inhumane. They would consider it some malicious thing. I don't know. There's a lot of space that has not been discussed there, and people write it off. They say, "Oh no, forget about it. Doesn't happen. Can't happen. We don't have the technology." But we're starting to. We're starting to get there where replacing people with parts not very far off, and we do it already with like one of the things that I heard about when Neuralink was being developed. They were comparing it on a podcast to having cell phones. They said, well, isn't a cell phone just an extension of your being? Because it's an interface where you can do math equations, you can do calculations, you can reference, you can look stuff up. So it becomes sort of like a part of your memory, a part of your calculation, a part of everything that you do becomes a cell phone. And that's basically an extension of the human mind at that point. It might be a shared extension. It might be what would you say, like a different type of extension. Not like it's wired directly to you, but we do interface with it. No, we're not plugged into it, but we interface by looking at the screen, typing. That's how we connect to it. It's not like we plug into it, but we could plug into it in the near future. I mean, what if we end up having some type of embedded Neuralink system, even if it's not in your skull? Let's say it's just some type of like attachment that goes to the back of your neck and it's able to interface lightly with your brain, maybe to give you, I don't know, some type of suggestive feedback through something. I don't know how it would work. I suppose you could do it through headphones and it could talk to you. We could do that already, right? ChatGPT can read you stuff. But again, the whole point of this is when you get to that stage where you can start interfacing directly with technology using your mind, you have to start asking these questions. Can we replace stuff? Can we define what a human is even? Because everyone's got these set in stone ideas of here's what I've come up with, and we don't agree on it because we don't have a definitive answer on it. And it's terrifying because at some point we might have an army of cyborgs, and maybe they'll take the very best, combat guy and say, we're going to train on this data. Now all of a sudden, every robot has the best combat skill, and you say, well, this guy is the number one pilot. Or you take the top 100 pilots in the military and you say, let's study exactly how they work. Let's study their mind. Let's study everything. And we're going to train the robots on this type of training data. So that way they can build the same neuron pathways and the same, the same experiences, I guess. But anyways, it leads a lot of strange discussions that haven't been had yet. And I think we need to start having those because it's only a matter of time till we get in there and they say, hey, we can clone people into digital stuff. People are going to be like, what does that mean? What are we even talking about? Uh, you have to assume that by the time we're asking the questions, someone's already done it. So by me even saying it, that really makes me wonder, have we done it yet? Somebody built that. And you see these sci-fi movies where people are like, panic, like they copy a human into a robot and the robot punches itself in the face until it dies. It's not realistic. That's not what would happen at all. You wouldn't suddenly be able to interface with something and panic that you're there unless the thing has the ability to panic. Like a robot doesn't panic, so if a human got copied into a robot, you wouldn't like be able to panic. You wouldn't be like, "Oh man, his heart rate's going up. He doesn't have a heart. He's a machine." Talking about. So there's a lot of weird things there that again, it's just all ambiguous right now. But the idea of having cyborgs in the near future and replacement parts and replacement bodies, potentially replacement minds, that idea is wild. And we're encroaching on it. It's getting closer every day. So have those discussions and don't be afraid to ask questions because it's getting closer all the time. I think it's something that's important to talk about. All right. Until next time.